bet365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Stephen Simcox, Locked on Horned Frogs, with us now. And Stephen, it's time to play the Triple Option's newest game show. But are they good?
America's fastest growing game show.
Yeah, I think the next time we do this, I need to get some music that sounds game showy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I should have thought of that before, just now, when I thought of the bit. But next time we play
a cappella.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's gonna play. All right, let's start at the bottom, Stephen, of the top 25. Louisville is 5-0. They have wins over Georgia Tech, some school with the Murray State. Sorry, I didn't know who Murr was. They also have a win over Frankincense. That's a Three Wiseman joke. No, no. Indiana, BC, NC State. They played Notre Dame this week. They're 5-0. But are they good? What do you think, Stephen?
No, I was not super impressed with Louisville. You know, the times I've seen them, I think they're making it work. You know, they're kind of a program in flux. Jeff Brom's there now, which is a guy they've had targeted for a long time. They finally found a way to get him back home. And I feel like long-term, it's going to be a really good hire and a really good situation for Louisville. But I do not think they're a legitimately good football team. They found a way to win, though. Good for them. I mean, they're about to hit bowl eligibility here in a minute. And maybe they pull off one big upset this year, but I feel like this is a team that's going to come back to earth here soon.
They have Notre Dame, Pitt, Duke, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Miami, and Kentucky remaining. I say they've probably got 3 more wins in there. I mean, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and Virginia, probably the most likely in there. But maybe you can upset someone like a Duke or Miami. I don't think so. I think Miami, we're going to get to them in a second because they're on this list. Kentucky, 4-0. Big win over Florida last week. It was the first quality win, I guess you say they have this season. But are they good?
I feel like this is every Kentucky team we've seen lately. Yes, they're a decent football team, but you know, we're about to hit the tough part of the schedule. Georgia, Mizzou, Tennessee, Alabama. You mentioned Louisville to end the season. I feel like this is a group that could really enjoy an appearance in the Music City Bowl, but good for them for beating Florida. I know that's not something they've done much in their history at all. And maybe you steal, that game, you beat Louisville. If you can steal one against these really good opponents, you're feeling good about yourself. But no, Paul, I would say I'm also out on the Kentucky Wildcats. I think this is just a group that's about to hit, the tougher part of their schedule.
Yeah, I can see this team being 9-3, like at their ceiling if they got hot, know. But they like right now, Georgia, Mizzou, Tennessee are their next 3 games, and look, if they go 2-1 out of that, I think that kind of tells you they're a good team. At the end of the year, we'll play the game, but are they great? Because those are the teams that win titles. So we don't know. We don't know who is yet this year. All right, first one-loss team on the docket here. Utah, 4-1, wins over Florida, Baylor, and UCLA. Took a loss last week to Oregon State and really kind of got pushed around in that one for the first time this year. They're 4-1, maybe dropping a little bit. No Cam Rising on the horizon. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen there. But are they good?
Man, I mean, can we put it with the caveat of Cam's status? Like, I think this is a good football team if he's available, and they're tough and they're physical and they're going to win games without him. But Paul, I mean, you saw it in person in Waco this year. Like, they're just so limited on the offensive side of the ball without Rising. I mean, Oregon State kind of exposed it. Other teams have exposed it, honestly. They've just been able to overcome it with their defense and with running the football. But if Rising is healthy, I will say, yes, that's a good football team. But who knows what kind of state he comes back in if and when he makes an appearance. I just can't really say Utah's, going to be in the mix for a Pac-12 title without, a significant upgrade at quarterback and getting this offense right down the stretch.
All right, let's go to the Miami Hurricanes. Massive wins over Miami, Ohio, Bethune-Cookman, and Temple, and a 48-33 win over Texas A&M. 4-0. Georgia Tech coming this week before their first real test of the season comes against North Carolina on October 14th. But are they good?
My apologies to your Florida State blood, but yes, I think this is a good Miami football team. I mean, honestly, like what A&M has done since that game, like they have a really good defensive line, and Miami was able to hold up. They're able to protect Tyler Van Dyke, and he looks like a completely different quarterback this year, already over 1,000 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. This is a good Miami team. I mean, I think they're going to be right there in the ACC. It's a loaded conference this year, but yes, I believe the Hurricanes, not the swagger they used to have, but it's a good team that Mario Cristobal has built here in a couple seasons.
I said first real test. Next real test is the term I should have used, because they handled Texas A&M and handled them very, very well. All right, North Carolina, Stephen, 4-0 on the year. Wins over South Carolina, App State, Minnesota, and Pitt. They have Syracuse this week, who just took their first loss, and obviously Miami in 2 weeks. 4-0, but are they good?
I'm going to say yes, and I hate to boil it down to just, one position or one aspect of this team. I don't love the North Carolina defense. I think they're going to be in a lot of close games because of that. But in my mind, Paul, like Drake May is one of 5 quarterbacks in the nation that is able to just elevate his team to a place where they could win against just about anybody in the country. I mean, just maybe you take away the teams that are contending for a national title, but everyone else they're going to face, Drake May's going to be able to keep them in games. So, yeah, I think this is a good football team. When Mac Brown took this job, I thought this was like, all right, let me get a couple $1 million before I go play golf again. But he's done a really nice job sort of turning this thing around and getting them to a place where they are constantly, at least in the conversation nationally. But yes, I think this is a good North Carolina team. Maybe not a complete football team, but they're good in the spots they need to be successful.
Number 13, Wazoo, 4-0. Biggest win, obviously, most important win was over Oregon State, but non-conference, a win over Wisconsin, also beating Colorado State and Northern Colorado. Cam Ward, their quarterback, is having a fantastic season. I'll answer this one first, Stephen. They are good. But are they good? Yes, I think they're very good. They've shown some uptick on the defensive side of the ball. UCLA this week is going to be tough. I mean, but after that, they've got Oregon, Arizona State, Stanford, and Cal. So Oregon will be very tough. Colorado will be tough after that, and Washington at the end of the year. But this is a team I think that can hang with anybody.
Yeah, I'm all in on Washington too. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. has been outstanding, and like, I don't know if they just have one dude that stands out, but I can't really think of many teams that have better skill position guys across the country. Like Ohio State comes to mind, and in Georgia's obviously got Brock Bowers, which is a total game changer. But they spread the ball around all over the field. This offense is humming. As you said, they don't look great on defense, but they look better. I think this team is really formidable, and it's a great. Pac-12 is a great league. Like there's good football teams on the West Coast with Oregon and USC, and Colorado's got a lot of attention around them as well. But yeah, I'm all in on the Huskies. I feel like this is a team that has a chance to be the dark horse there because they're just super talented.
All right, let's go back to the team I started talking about, Wazoo, Washington State. How are they good?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I kind of have a soft spot for them because of the year that they're going through. Mm-hmm. But I think Washington State's a good football team. Wisconsin is not nearly as good as they've typically been. They're sort of in transition, but still, like they handled the Badgers really well. I know that was a home game, but it was never, the score was never really super close, or you never felt like Wazoo was out of control in that game. I like Washington State. I like Oregon State. I'm pulling for those programs. I think the Cougars are a good football team. Again, it's tough because Pac-12 is so good, but I think that's a good football team. They might end up being like 9-3, and in another league, maybe they end up, 10-1 or 10-2 or something like that. But I think Washington State's in a really good spot.
All right, Oklahoma. We'll do Oklahoma and Texas together since they're playing each other. Oklahoma has just started to maybe peak on offense a little bit and bring their head out of the sand. Texas has looked good in every single game. So Red River rivalry or shootout, however you want to say it. But are they good?
Texas is legitimately good, as much as it pains me to say it. And honestly, Paul, I don't even think this offense has really reached their full potential. And maybe it ends up being better. Or maybe this is the first team in a while where you don't feel like you have to just have an elite quarterback. I think Quinn has been better. I think he's been good. And he's got the arm talent, but they're not just necessarily lighting up the scoreboard every week. However, Jonathan Brooks has been fantastic running the football. He broke 200 yards against Kansas. And that defense is just going to travel. I mean, they're just going to play hard. They're big. They're physical. I want to see what OU does this week. I know it's always a rivalry game, and typically it's close, with the exception of last season. But I really like what Brett Venables has done with his defense. I was skeptical that he could turn it around this quickly. That's a nasty unit, though. And as you said, offense seems to be hitting their stride. I'm not a huge believer in Dylan Gabriel, but I think they can function well enough and play complementary football to win a lot of games. But in my mind, Texas is the big dog at the moment. So if you go punch them in the mouth and win, or if that's just a really close competitive football game, then I feel really good about Oklahoma moving forward.
All right, Stephen, do you have any team? Do you want to switch it up and see if you can host, but are they good?
All right, we talked about their Maverick brethren earlier, but Oregon State, you talked earlier about them coming off that win against Utah on a Friday night. Are they good, Paul? Is Oregon State a good football team?
I think they are good. I like their coach. I think, look, DJU, I think, is what he is, but in that system, he seems to flourish a lot better than he did in Brandon Streeter's system at Clemson. So I think it's going to work out for them long term. I'm very curious to see how they do against UCLA in 2 weeks, how they hang with Colorado, because Oregon State's not going to maybe move up and down the field like Colorado will, but I do think that they can hang with them. I think that'll be a really interesting game, and they're certainly a tougher team than Colorado is right now as far as being physical up front. So, yeah, I'm going to say they are good, but they might wind up 8-4 just because the schedule is really tough, considering the last two for them are Washington and at Oregon. And although that Oregon game Thanksgiving week is really going to be – or Thanksgiving Friday, really going to be interesting because there's going to be a lot of emotion in that one, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Paul, I thought Neil Brown was going to get fired after this year. Suddenly the Ears are 4-1. Their one loss was to Penn State. Listen to the schedule. Houston, Oklahoma State, UCF, BYU, Oklahoma in mid-November. And they close with Cincinnati and Baylor. Is West Virginia a good football team?
They're a better football team, and I said this earlier this week. Take Neil Brown right off the hot seat. Just take him off. He's done enough with quarterback injuries and all that to show West Virginia that maybe you can trust him a little bit. Maybe you can trust him to develop some players. What really hurt West Virginia over the last couple of years was they really got raided in the portal right off the bat. When NIL hit, they just got raided in the portal because they were not ready for it. And now it appears, especially what they're doing on the basketball side, and they'll swing like what they did with JT Daniels, which obviously was not worth it at all for them. But what they've done, I think they're ready to hang in there and be that team. So yeah, I think I'm not going to say they're good. I'm going to say they're better. And the schedule, like you said, really, really lines up for them. Although by the time they play UCF, John Rice Plumlee will be back. I think that game will be different. BYU will be a tough one for them, but I think they've got a ton of winnable games there. A ton of very winnable games. If TCU is a winnable game for them, given what TCU has compared to that they have on offense, then all the rest of those are winnable games.
All right, last one. You and I both, we took our shots at Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss after that Alabama game, and rightly so. Felt like they had a chance to make a huge statement. They didn't do it. Do you feel differently about Ole Miss after that upset of LSU? My apologies to Garrett Ross for bringing that up.
I don't feel so much differently about Ole Miss as I am more disappointed in that they did not rise to the moment against Alabama. Like, I know that LSU's defense is struggling and it's not good, but if you've got 55 against LSU, you could have 28 against Bama. I'm sorry. This Bama team, I feel like you could. You could.
Yeah.
You score half that, you win that game and control it, and they did not rise to meet the moment against Nick Saban. Of course, Lane may never beat Nick Saban. I don't know. It just may never happen for him. Like, he's not one of the the proteges who's won. Jimbo's beating him, Kirby's beating him, and Sark's beating him now. But he might not be that guy. I don't know. We'll see. I think that they're fine, but the SEC West doesn't have a great team this year. That's for certain. And Bama might be able to like come out on top of this again just because of how it works out. But it's never been more wide open to this right now. And so no, I'm going to say no. I'm not ready to start a parade for Ole Miss yet.
The drunk Ole Miss fan that like crawled up and down the goalpost and eventually jumped off of it, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give him for post-game celebration, weird drunken escapade?
Oh, that's a 7.5 right there. You know, like, I mean, to stay on it and keep going as opposed to just take, you got up there, then you got to get down. He just kept going and going and going. Now, they serve some pretty, like, the Grove is a great tailgating scene. It's not LSU, which is the best, although can be quite scary. But they're like, when I'm watching him do that, that's not beer drunk. That's not whiskey drunk or tequila drunk. That is something from a still drunk. Like, that's hey, y'all, try this. Like, one of those things that, you if you had 3 shots of it as opposed to 2, you would be blind.
Yeah, and possibly a gummy involved too. Like, my man looked like he was kind of in orbit. So I'm not sure what all he was under the influence of, but it looked like he had a great time.
Yeah. They have legal weed in Mississippi. Is that one of the states that has done it?
I wouldn't think so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, sometimes those things lead to reading books, and you don't want to make that mistake. So that was a pretty harsh shot at Mississippi. So anyway, when we come back, there was an Urban Meyer rumor that came from like a dark corner of the internet about Michigan State yesterday, and then everybody's had to check it out. Tom Fornelli had a really funny tweet about it, and we'll talk about that next. This is 365 Sports, the triple option.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications